unbelievable. Let's move on to the next slide here. So this I thought was an interesting article in National Review. It talks about coronavirus and the gig economy, and one kind of tangential, because we brought it up multiple times, technology. The cycles and waves of the 1930s are different in timing than the cycles and waves of the roaring 20s of the 2000s. Technology is speeding things up. The cycle goes up quick and busts quick. We better get used to it, because we're in the roaring 20s, and wait till things like artificial intelligence when we have, and quantum computing get here, when things really move fast. But this article was interesting because it stated that, you know, it's been just 13 years since the first iPhone was sold. 13 years. That is not a long time. It seems like decades upon decades. And that, I think, is indicative of where we're at from a technology and economic standpoint, is that technology is helping things ramp up quick and ramp down quick. Now, the point of this article was that lower wage workers have access to jobs now like never before. They don't have to go through their network. They don't have to go through traditional staffing companies. They go right to where the market is. And I believe, and you're going to see some stats on the staffing company that Brandon's going to remark on shortly, that the industry is going to really be disrupted now. Gig economy is in the forefront. What we used to call contingent labor staffing is now kind of all being blended together. So we're going to talk about that. But Brandon, any thoughts on workers' empowerment and just this technology in the industry?
Yeah, I'm so excited just to see what stats will be, you know, in 6 months from now, that come out to say how many gig workers were stayed employed during this whole time, right? Because it's huge. And I would say, in addition to, you know, shout out to all the healthcare workers. I know I have many friends that are nurses and in the industry, and doctors, and restaurant, groceries, and store folks. Those are full-time folks, right? Those are working tirelessly. And then you have the drivers. I was having some food delivered for my mom through Amazon Fresh. And it was, you know, it was nice to see. She had a mask on. I was able to watch this whole thing because my mom has Ring. And so seeing the person deliver, drop the food in gloves, and, you know, that person most likely is a gig worker, right? And at the forefront of also driving, being able to literally driving, but, you know, driving food to people. So that's helping protect, putting their lives also on the line too, so that elderly folks and other folks that are just scared to go out, you know, or can't go out, have access to that, you know. And so it's really going to be fascinating to see what those numbers turn out to be, you know, what the ratio of FT from full-time workers to contract and gig workers look like.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's just, you brought up history a little bit. It's kind of crazy to understand that in World War II, we knew who the enemy was, right? It was physical and we could see it. And then VED and VJ Day, we cheered for the Army, Navy, Marines, and Air Force. And then in 9/11, the things really became microscopic with terrorist groups, and that changed our economy. And now things are literally microscopic, right? Our enemies are microscopic, and the heroes, 9/11 first responders, heroes now, people on the front lines, right? Our delivery people. FedEx just delivered something today that I thought was going to be here on Friday. I'm like, dude, how are you? And to the driver who came, I was just outside, and it just happened to show up, and he's like, whew, took a deep breath. I said, I hope at least you're getting overtime. So, and then the next, and the microscopic trend, as we get farther in the decade, just even information is going to cause cycle and waves. It won't even be microbial at that standpoint. We'll see who the heroes are then. But I agree with you. God bless everybody who's on the front lines of this in the service and hospital industry. And I know that our goal at EverHive is to help keep people employed. And those people are doing a great job. So the second part of this article kind of states that it's the marketplace for workers that's driving their ability and want to work. It's not governmental regulations, and this is gig economy. It's not governmental regulations. It's not the pure economic standpoint of pricing and so forth, but it's now, as we'll see in a slide, the Instacart workers striking because they just don't feel like they're safe and being paid enough now. The market is driving labor now, and because of technology, workers have power. Any thoughts on that, Brandon?
Yeah, you know, it makes a person pause when you think about that. It's the economy that's driving some of those things, and to a sense, it probably always was but it was never kind of captured that way. But now that you really look at it, it's the economy, it's protection, it's health, it's pay, it's all of these things that are coming together to say, hey, we're in demand and we're happy to be of service. Just protect us. You know, protect us, whether it be we have families too. We're happy to do this. We're grateful to do it. Protect us. You know, and that's really kind of, you know, at the fundamental core of all of this. It's really fascinating to look at it as part of the economy, right? And you can take, hey, economy equals protection and, you know, so on and so forth. But to see that as a driver is huge. You know, again, it always has. So, but just more kind of different pieces of it is in a different way.
I totally agree with you on that front. And I think to get technical, what you reminded me of is that we've had a shift over the past 10 years from staffing W-2 workers who taxes are collected, remitted. They usually have an end date to their assignment with temp workers. Things have been pushed now to 1099 gig workers. The problem with that has been in today's society is 1099 workers don't get the benefits, PTO, they don't get healthcare benefits. And now we're paying for it at this point. So you brought up a good point, which is the market is going to be disrupted with gig economy workers who don't have some of these benefits. I think that there's going to be governmental regulation around that. I think you're going to see a lot of W-2 workers 1099 transitioning, or some kind of new workforce that is 1099 based with mandates on PTO and health benefits. So I know that we've been talking a lot about that. It's part of our transparent employer of record. Any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, even the hybrid model, right? To where organizations say, you know what, I want to take care of our workers. So we'll contribute. We consider them as, you know, there's always been, and you know, I've preached about this for longer than I cared to, but there's always been this stigma, we got to have an arm's distance. Well, yes, and they're still workers. You know, they're still working for you, doing something specific for your organization. So what we're going to find is I really start thinking there's going to be more of a hybrid type of approach to where, hey, we want to give these workers, and we're not going to wait for government regulations to come down, although I strongly believe that there will be. You know, we have a goal. My personal goal is to actually work with some of the government regulations on helping create policy in regards to gig workers and contingent workers. So, but I think organizations are going to be more proactive. We're already seeing that. We already have couple of our clients that are being proactive and have gone above and beyond what I have ever seen in my career. And it's refreshing because I think that's the you know, companies that are able to do it, that have that strong people first mission. These are the people that they don't have a shortage of talent. You know, and that's the, you know, kind of when you look at it, it's how you treat your people. And that's, you know, that's a whole nother article for a different day.
Yeah, we used to, you know, over the past decade, that employer of choice term came out, and that was a big, you know, obviously that translated into having a good job site and having good, but now I think we're really, with social media, that kind of PR spreads within hours for companies. Yep. So interesting take. So the Instacart strike. So in the past week alone, and this was a recent article, so over the past 2 weeks, but in 1 week, 250,000 people signed up for Instacart. Now, Instacart is a gig economy company. It's a technology, and they don't employ anybody, but at least not directly. But basically, these Instacart shoppers go out to stores locally, and they pick the goods off the shelf, they pay for it, and they bring it to a person's house. And there's been 250,000 new customers on that, rightfully so, on that service in a week. And then the workers at the Instacart company, they have a strike, if you can even call it that, because it's not the auto workers union here. It's a loose band of confederation of people coming together that are gig workers demanding rights. So they strike because lack of pay and safety considerations. We've kind of hit upon that. But Brandon, this is interesting that that independents, fragmented individuals are organizing themselves. And of course, Uber drivers have class action against Uber and Lyft and things like that. But any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think kind of to my earlier comment is I'm going to love to see the numbers, you know, on this, because, you know, again, it kind of goes down to just protections and doing the right thing. And it's, and to a company's credit, to get that surge, I don't know what that percentage of 250,000 is from a business. That's a huge surge in probably a month, right? Of new people and to get people on board and all that good stuff. That's why it's even more critical just to be able to scale like that, because you never know when your business is going to scale significantly up or it needs to get scaled down temporarily. That's, again, love to talk to some of the Instacart folks just to just to see what they would like to see have done differently when they kind of do a post-mortem of all this.
I would expect that they're going to demand the simple things like health insurance and PTO. So if they're sick, they can take care of themselves and their family. And Brandon, you and I were out at a brand, a U.S. brand, at least that I think everybody would know, retail brand and clothing company recently. And we had the CFO and COO there in the room, and we started to share with them. We went into why temp labor. Well, to some degree, it's companies moving workers off their books for workers' comp and unemployment and cash flow reasons, and that in the gig economy was accelerated to let's not have any. They're 1099s. Let's just get them off our books entirely. And going back to your hybrid model, I think that that CFO and that COO, who are really smart guys, they were like, wow, that's an interesting strategy you have with your transparent employer record. So I think that we're going to see this real, and it's all financial driven, right? If you could say, if you have some of the prospects companies in our pipeline have up to $1 billion of gig labor, and this particular company have 30 some odd million, and that's a significant amount when you talk about 1% savings, 2%. So anyway,
well, you hit on something really important here, and I want everyone to listen to this. Is when you think, a lot of people say, oh, it's 1-2%. These aren't fluff numbers that we talk about. These are real hard cost dollar savings that impact the bottom line. So, as doing things differently instead of just taking that, if it's 1, 2, 3, some are 5% decrease or more, in savings. There's things that you can do with that actually help elevate that. So instead of, we're just going to take that, 5 or 6% in savings and chalk it up to cost savings. Well, what if you were to invest in it in a different way? And so those are some of the things that we talk about in our transparent model, but really that we help educate the companies with, that they didn't know were even possible, right? But then guess what? They're going to get the retention. They get those workers. Those workers want to stay. They start referring friends, and it spirals from there, just by taking a small percentage of that savings and reinvesting it in a strategic way.
Yeah, and that strategic way could be reinvesting it into PTO for gig workers, or even benefits, which would make them an employer of choice. You reminded me again, we were at that meeting a couple weeks back at one of the EverHive clients with procurement, and he brought out his yellow pad, literally. He had some numbers scribbled. And he was still, even though the invoices had been sent, the program is fairly new, he still wanted to sit down and go, let me understand this. I don't really get, are we really saving this much? He had the numbers, but we went through it and a smart guy, right? Good with like math off the top of his head. But we went through it. He's like, wow, okay, this is a couple $1 million of savings that we have here on $30-40 million in gig labor. So you reminded me of that and how astonishing it is. And now we can take that savings and reinvest it in the welfare of the workforce, which would lead to, I was on the phone with an American Airlines employee, had to cancel a ticket to a Miami trip. And I can't tell you how thankful that person was to be employed right now. She said, I'm working from home. I'm working extra. She was super nice on the phone. I think we're finally realizing what we have and appreciating. And the companies are going to need to have that to retain these gig workers. So I think that's critical.
100% on that.
Anything else there? I'll move to the next slide.